So the title of my poster is, here, let me go ahead. The Perfect Storm, Poor Sleep Amplifies the Connection Between Emotion Regulation and Anxiety in Adolescence. So we'll go ahead and get started with the background. Anxiety disorders are one of the most common mental health disorders, and current estimates report that approximately 7.3% of the global population are affected. With anxiety affecting such a large percentage of the population, significant work has been conducted in pursuit of identifying factors that can explain the development of anxiety. So one proposed risk factor for the development of later anxious symptoms is emotion regulation ability, or the processes that allow one to modulate their emotional states. So substantial evidence from previous literature supports the association between early emotion regulation ability and maladaptive outcomes in adulthood, including substance abuse, sexual promiscuity, and the expression of later psychopathology. So more specifically, low emotion regulation during adolescence has been associated with the development of anxiety disorders in adulthood. So one proposed explanation for this association poses that youth who express low emotion regulation during adolescence are particularly at risk, as adolescence is a time when emotion regulation ability becomes necessary to successfully navigate the shifting social landscapes and increased responsibilities that are characteristic of this developmental time period. So basically, a child entering adolescence with low emotion regulation ability may therefore be ill-equipped to handle the demands of adolescence, resulting in the emergence of anxious symptoms over time. So with anxiety affecting such a large percentage of the global population, studying risk factors such as low ER may help explain how some traits confer risk for the expression of later anxious symptoms in adulthood. So like I mentioned, the association between ER and anxiety has been pretty well established in the literature. But poor sleep quality in adolescence has also been shown to predict later socio-emotional problems, such as the emergence of anxiety disorders in adulthood. So this suggests that poor sleep patterns in adolescence may disrupt the crucial development of regulatory pathways that occur during sleep. So the current study sought to investigate the relationship between ER ability and later anxious symptoms as moderated by sleep quality. So that's a general idea of the current study. Some hypotheses that I went into was that adolescents with low emotion regulation at age 15 will experience greater anxious symptoms at age 17 in the context of poor sleep quality, controlling for earlier symptoms of anxiety at age 15. So here are some general demographics. We have an ethnically diverse sample with slightly greater percentage of females, and our sample size is 147. So for measures, emotion regulation ability was assessed at age 15. This is child report using a pretty typical scale to assess emotion regulation, the child emotion management scale. So in this case, higher scores indicates lower emotion regulation ability. Sleep quality was assessed by child report at age 15 using the PIPSI, which is the Pittsburgh Sleep Quality Index. And in this case, higher scores indicate lower sleep quality. So it is notable that in our sample, our adolescents reported actually higher sleep quality compared to averages that are projected in other larger adolescent community samples. So that should be noted as well. And then lastly, our outcome, which is anxious symptoms, was child reported age 17 using the MASC, which is just a broadband scale of different types of anxious symptoms. And in this case, higher scores indicate higher anxiety. So I used hierarchical linear regression. For step 1, I was testing for main effects between emotion regulation and sleep. And then step 2, I created an interaction term between emotion regulation and sleep quality and tested that linear association with the outcome of anxiety while controlling for earlier anxious symptoms at 15. So I did end up finding that there was a significant effect of the interaction term. And if you look closer here at my graph, I found that at the lowest sleep quality and intermediate quality sleep, there was a significant linear association between emotion regulation, lower levels of emotion regulation, and higher levels of outcomes of anxiety. So I found a main effect between ER at 15 and anxious symptoms at age 17, specifically where low emotion regulation is associated with elevated anxious symptoms, which is what we predicted initially. And then the interaction term between emotion regulation and sleep quality was also significant in predicting anxious symptoms while controlling for earlier anxious symptoms. So like I mentioned, this linear association between ER and anxiety was significant at lower levels of sleep quality and mean levels of sleep quality, even after controlling for earlier anxious symptoms. So our findings were consistent with the hypothesis that sleep quality exacerbates the association between emotion regulation and later anxiety for children that don't get adequate sleep, even after controlling for earlier anxiety. So like I mentioned before, given that mean sleep quality in the present sample was less severe than reports of the average adolescent sleep quality reported in other studies, demonstration of an interaction effect between sleep and ER, even in less severe sleep quality deficits, suggests a robustness in the association between ER, sleep, and later anxiety. So for my next study, I would like to incorporate measures that are, not just self-report, because that is, potential bias. And I would like to assess sleep quality using other measures, including polysomnography. And I'd like to acknowledge the Right Track Project for helping make this possible.